rejoin. I think I need to rejoin. Otherwise, I can hear your voice. So I'll be back.
To reconnect again.
Always the same. What Lynn?
Yeah.
Not to be confusing Lynn with Lean.
Oh, Lean and Lynn.
Yeah, Lynn's miles is significant. And then Lee's here. We have Lee, Lynn, and Lynn. Oh, that's just a lot of...
It's a lot of L's.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
All the love. We should have Nathan joining us and Drew. That's Odin's son. He should be hopping in. He's got a bunch of stuff to share about Massachusetts.
I
was talking about Lichtenberg figures right before we started recording.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the Vesuvius.
Hey, Nathan.
Nathan.
Oh, dude, you're muted.
Well, I saw you.
Hi, guys.
Yeah.
Hi, Nathan.
We missed you, bro.
How you guys been?
We've been thinking a lot about Argonite. We want to do something with you soon on the technology of it, and its likely application in the past. I think we're seeing stuff around here that makes a lot of sense about it. And Victor's been finding all sorts of pre-Tesla proof of electric coil and technasmus. I mean, it's not like we didn't know it, but just like, just hit people with the evidence every time you got it. It's just great.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it was actually, you remember that, Mike, that translated Russian text?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember who did that, Mike? Who was the translator on that?
Yeah, Willie took care of that for us.
Thanks, Willie. Willie's the best.
Yeah.
Love this group.
I think it was Willie. He set up this Russian guy on our Discord, that guy with the little reptilian green avatar.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He did it.
Yeah.
He was the Russian who did it.
That was Lizar. Hi, guys.
Oh, yeah, right. True.
Yeah, he's our little Russian friend. We kind of picked up a few months back. I don't know how it happened. He just kind of started messaging, and then that was it. We just dragged him around, so we just invite him wherever we go. It's like
who's driving?
Miles is in the car.
Oh.
Don't think he's driving.
Everybody's driving.
Well, we've been driving a lot. We drove all the way from Valencia to Alicante through Denia and Habia. Habia is Xabea, and that's where Stellium is from. Stellium 7. He's one of the best, and also Flat Earth Guru. What you call him?
Flat Earth Man. The guy who makes the music.
Yeah, it's Alex, basically. I feel pretty cool about that. He's a nice guy. He knows a lot of an interesting thing, and he's in a lot of amazing things at this time. He just happens to know the world.
I was like starstruck for like 2 or 3 hours. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to take pictures of you.
No, he's a really base guy. He's down to earth. And
it's down to
part of the
earth. Oh, he's not down to globe, so we're good with that, aren't we?
I know.
Oh, look, a globe.
Well, we're not all flat earthers here, so we shouldn't talk too much about
an astronaut. I'm sorry. It was just too good. But
yeah, it was good. It was funny. And then Mike, he took us up into the elephant's eye, and we went into the eye and into we're standing inside the skull of the elephant and chanting and stuff. It was funny.
So if anybody's not following attention, I know that we're all doing it, but some of the people watching this video, Stellium 7, I really think you guys are going to check out his work. He's doing incredible things. Looking into past the continent and Titans, we're finding things now that I think we all know that biologically and geologically there were big life forms, but he's found cochlear muscles, vertebrates, invertebrates, exoskeletons, inner plasma from the iron-rich blood. We went spelunking in a cave down through, I think it was a cochlear muscle into the lung of a giant mastodon-like elephant-like mountain. And granted, we're using modern words that describe modern biological forms, but I would say there's a lot of evidence to it. You'll see the videos for yourself, and you'll be able to make your own decisions. But I'm fairly convinced now. I was already convinced that there were biological forms, but the complexity of these things, it makes sense considering we're talking about. It's not that it's just a steady slope to humanity. there seems to be these points that we're talking about where things were very complex. And then
so that's what we're dealing with.
We're actually, I'd been speaking to Stellium, and this is right before you guys met with him. I'm due to have a conversation with him on pyroclasm and the creation of his Montgo mammoth, because we think Brittany and I have been working on volcanoes quite a bit. And
your work on volcanoes, he was like, he wouldn't stop talking about Brittany and Nathan's work on volcanoes and pyroclastic.
Yeah.
We
really got to get together with him and you and bounce some heads and record it. I mean, it's just such incredible information that only you guys can ask and answer.
That's the thing about all of us. We're all on our own hunts, and we had no clue that we had his answer.
Right. Yeah. But it's cool.
Had no clue.
He has the questions that we need to answer and that you've got the experiments from. And that's one of the reasons I keep thinking with the Orgonite.
Hey guys, say hi to Drew.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, Drew, what's up, man?
Hello.
Jump in over here. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Super glad you could make it, man. We've been really impressed with all the stuff that you've been pointing. You just busted out like so.
I know, man. I've been watching your videos for, the last 2 months, and I just felt an urge that I just need to get on the same page with you guys. And being an electrician, I'm inside these buildings, and some of them, are Antiquitech, and they're the red brick. And I'm seeing when they bust open the wall and do some demolition, what's going on inside of them. So I just felt like, we got to get on the same page here. It's really exciting. So,
dude, the stuff that you, I mean, you're one of those guys who, like, we've had a few of you, not many, the people that listen for a while and then they just come speaking in complete sentences and phrases and essays. It's like really impressive stuff. I'm really stoked. And
I appreciate it. And I feel like I'm on the same page with Victor on the way that he treats, the greater Tartary and the way that he views the tribes. And, I relate it to, Christ consciousness and, and I bring it back to, I think the 12 disciples is more my view, that they were represented 12 kings and 12 tribes. And I think, it goes off of, the controllers, and where I pick up is in, the reset towns. Like, I'm living in Massachusetts and I'm seeing the mud floods. I'm driving around and I'm taking these photos, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you guys, So, yeah, man.
Yeah,
so it's really
stuff that we had. I mean, that area in Mass, anywhere below Boston, especially, there's just so many areas that have been completely, rebuilt, but you can see, we're seeing it now, how things are happening, where they leave facades in the front and then they just blow up the insides and then they start over, but they have the facades on the outside. So it was crazy because, we're having a hard time distinguishing anymore. Once you start getting everywhere at once, you start seeing all of the neoclassical architecture all at once. And
if I may, I remember your video like a few weeks ago. You were talking about those shoots that used to be in like hospitals, and they would shoot information, and that's technology, right? And I was seeing that in one of the buildings I worked in this weekend. It's actually next to the one that Mikey's showing right now. And not just that, but you see how on the top the Antiquitech is still bonded, and it even goes to some of the railings inside of the stairways. You'll see they come up in the posts, and when they take off the posts and they change them, you can still see how they probably worked with like lighting, and you also see in the center beams the pressed red brick, but it's a lot longer. So it's really interesting just to be inside of these. And then even driving in town in Clinton, Massachusetts, it's such a cool story because, when you drive by these buildings, you're driving by at the 3rd floor. There's 25-foot drops. And especially in the town of Clinton, you have a Russian museum, and people, you ask them, just ask townies, like, why do they have a Russian museum here? And they'll say, oh, because one of the original owners of all this, the big red brick factories, he traveled the world picking up Russian statues and art. Well, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. I feel more as he found the items in his building, you know, in the buildings, not just that building, because you know, this town has the look. It has it in it. It has the, you know, as Victor was saying 2 days ago, he was saying how the Tartary is more of like plain and red and yellow brick, and Phoenician has more of the ornamental, you know, statues and gargoyles and all of that. And you see that plain red brick, but it's made to last, because this town was just so mud flooded. And later on, I can show some pictures if you want. I would definitely like to do that for you guys.
Yeah, this,
totally.
even just looking at some of the pictures you sent earlier and some of the stuff that Mike's showing while you're explaining, it's so crazy. Looking at, I mean, the height of the mud walls, the style of the brick, and yeah, that's a mind blowing little bit there about the world history collector.
Yeah.
Doesn't like
If he turns to the right, if he turns around to the right, I was working on the top of those roofs right there.
Wow.
And I have the view from the other angle, and just looking over, you know, all of Worcester, you can just see how, you know, even the DCU Center is in an octagon. They use all these type of, you know, stars all throughout their buildings, and the copper on the top, and the antiquitech on some of the churches. It's insane. And they have if he turns a corner, if he goes up the street a little bit, there's going to be this big church that has these huge flower of life, and the cymatics that must be in that place, huh? Like, it's just beautiful. But yeah, so let me share my screen if you guys want, and I can show you some of these pictures.
Please,
Totally.
please.
I'm pretty fascinated by this. You know, I mean, it seems like the thing that we didn't want to push too hard at the beginning was the flamenco thing, because I was like, that's an old news conspiracy or whatever we're allowed to call those things these days. And like, you know, it's a story. And now everywhere I go, I mean, people are like, oh man, this is like a flamenco thing. What's up with that? I was like, actually, at this point, it seems like the pretty viable. Like, I looked at the, you know, the history lines of all the architecture here, and it only makes sense that way. I mean, I can't see history for what I was told it for at all anymore. It's just like you can't. And even at the time, you're like, okay, there must have been this static period called the Dark Ages that just no one's fashions or music taste changed at all for like hundreds of years. All right, maybe. But
can you guys see my my screen?
Not yet. You have to click share full screen. The red.
Now, the flamenco thing has been a buzzword now. Whenever I want to shortcut what I'm trying to say, historically, this is a little off. I just shout flamenco, and people are on the same page. It's catching.
That's what it is. It's a hashtag. Thank you, Nathan.
It's true. Nathan. It's true.
But it's weird because, you know, I mean, you keep running into the Slavic influences everywhere. South Spain has Slavic. The rounder city from the first video we showed with the high architecture.
Whoa.
Can you guys see that?
Odin, we're seeing your thing now. Where is this at?
So this is in Clinton, Mass, and
it
is right next to their dam. And this is one of the huge red brick mud flooded buildings, and you can see right here, you know, this is probably another 2 stories down, right? I mean, what do you guys think? Can you see the windows in the corner here?
Oh yeah. I see that. Whoa.
You know, and when you drive by, you're driving. There's a street you can't see right now where my house is, but you're driving by, you know, and you're over the building. You know what I mean? You wouldn't just build it that way.
You've seen Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser, and he lives in a bomb shelter. And the end of the movie is him walking around measuring out where they're going to dig to have a perfect flat area, and they'll have an underground.
Oh, this is all red brick, mud flooded.
Oh man, look how they green bricked over that spot too.
Oh, is that like a little crescent moon?
It is. You see?
Whoa.
That is Tartary symbols.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna jump real quick. I have a photo for you of this town back in 1800s. But let me just give you another example. I'll go down a little further. Let's just real quick. This is one of those shoots that I saw on Saturday, and you can see it goes all the way up. And one of the maintenance guys was saying that this used to be in use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they had such beautiful ones. I don't know why they pretended like they couldn't fix them after 100 years of operation or more. All of a sudden, they said they had to go right when emails were becoming popular.
Yeah, well, that's another story, right? That's pretty funny itself.
But it is interesting also, you just said the Arabian Moors, and I noticed you've been reading that book. Victor's got this book, and I'm going to go ahead and Reading Rainbow recommend it, The Light of Egypt, by Thomas Burgon. I don't know if Americans can pronounce that, so I'm going to pronounce it like that. But this book, so far, it seems to be pointing out some of my thoughts about the Gaelic people being the Slavic people. And, before the Arabian Moors were in control of Rounda, then it was the Gaelis, and the Galatians before that were Slavic. And so you're finding these Tartarian symbols in what we're considering Egyptus, Egypt, but what is Egypt, right? Because there's clearly like a confederacy of kingdoms, and every one of these nations that we talk about, Spain, United States of America, Italy, England, Britain, they're all like 200 years old, 400 maybe. Like after that, they're just kingdoms that were connected together. So, it's interesting that we're seeing these symbols over and over again. They seem to repeat over and over again in all of the cultures. I think, what did you just mentioned the zodiac, Jesus being born in a manger, and the manger is the zodiac?
In a stable,
in a
right?
A stable.
The zodiac you used to use it in a word that meant stables.
Mm-hmm.
So an animal of stables. And that's the zodiac, because it's an animal circle, a circle of animals.
And they say that the stables was in a cave, which is a very interesting thing also about the census period when he got back. But it's very interesting that, Odin, you're bringing up some of the Christian stuff, because just anthropologically, it's accurate. It's just what's going on. We're looking into the lost 12 tribes, and we're seeing there's just so much comparison to that. I mean, that leads us back into the idea of Moscow being Jerusalem. I don't know if anyone's heard that, outside of this room, but the idea that Moscow was Jerusalem in the old world maps.
Right. Mikey was showing me that yesterday. And also Miles was talking about in Russia, there is a united church that has like over 144 different languages in it. Do you guys know about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's the church, dude. It's just the country.
It's a part. It's Tartarstan.
Yeah, it has over 140 languages spoken in it, supposedly, or 122.
But there was a church that was completely vegetarian. Like there's a lot of Russian. We were telling me this.
Yeah, there was like a suppression of vegetarianism, and
the word was banned for like ever.
I can't remember the exact date. Philip Dushinin knows everything about this, but it's true that it's reported in history of Russia that vegetarianism went away and it was banned from the dictionaries, and probably to suppress a huge vegetarian-loving, nature-loving remnants of Tartaria.
It's at least a very interesting anecdote, because at the exact same time that you have the old ways being suppressed, people are being forced to join this sort of co-opted religious organization, and the religions are being removed, their cultures being changed, their writing systems being removed, and even their calendars are being changed. And it's those calendars that took, the Gregorian calendar is not even observed in parts of Belarusia, I don't think, until 1918. So it's in the early 20th century that the calendars changed. So even people within maybe not our lifetimes, but our grandparents or our parents' lifetimes would have known the shift. Some of them in the parts of Eastern Europe.
So Exertus, right? What we have going on here in this picture, this is out near Quincy, Mass. And the same train that I'm going to show goes all the way from the Quincy quarries, goes back to Clinton, and along the way you'll see children that don't look really like they're with their parents. They look like they're working. So I'm trying to include the children trains and the foundlings from after the reset, because these pictures are crystal clear HD, and I found an archive that suggests that these are the controllers just starting out. You know, you look at the ground around these pictures, you know, they're not 100% mud flooded, but they're not perfect. You can kind of tell they're kind of just exploring, because we'll see on the way back, they're looking at some tunnels, and it is suggested in the mainstream that there's catacombs under Worcester, Mass, and throughout Clinton in these big factory towns. And they call them catacombs. We call them tunnels. Maybe they say that because there are people buried under there. I don't understand that part of the story yet. But as we look through these pictures, you know, you guys can talk about them and have suggestions, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think you're definitely on my same train, my same foundling train.
Same train, yeah. And it shows with talking about trains that, you know, the steam trains, and then they show steam use with in drilling, and then they show electric cranes too, which is you know, pretty wild, suggesting that the mainstream thinks, and people think all around us, that electricity wasn't even around until 1855, and these pictures are saying that they're 1825 and, you know, circa 1800s, and you know, I don't know, they're pretty cool, crystal HD.
You know, like by 17, I don't know, 1750s, I think it was. I think it was before 1791. Sometime Benjamin Franklin, and his creation of the patent office, had done the lightning rod. And we're always thinking of that as this way of grounding a house from being from being hit in a lightning storm.
It was basically the precursor to, or maybe even like the propaganda to make people not think about aerostatic electricity.
Remove the technasma.
Right.
People think that these are electricity is dangerous, right? All of those stories are about how dangerous it is, really. Except the kid with the key.
They even say that lead paint is dangerous, and I think I've heard you guys suggest that you think otherwise, because when you look at these, you know, Antiquitech houses and buildings, you know, when you look at the paint and behind them, they have a metal grating, so they're even, the paint's even bonded to, you know, the bonding in the building itself, the inner workings. It's part of a machine. That's what I'm saying it is.
Well, of course it's dangerous. You can't get 5G radio signal through the lead paint. I mean, that.
Hey, Drew, can you tell us about when you're tearing things out of those houses or whatever you're doing? Do they have plaster work in there with latting, or?
Well, I'm in commercial buildings, so I'm in
okay. I thought you were doing something.
But I have been in old, you know, 1800s, early 1900s residential houses, and you see horsehair walls. But I'm saying in the commercial buildings, you see like a metal meshing that's like on top of the red brick, and then it's metal meshing, and then the paint, you know, where you would usually see sheetrock. You see that like kind of really close to the red brick, and I'm suggesting that metal meshing, or at least aluminum, is, you know, going back to at least a bonding site that probably has inner workings that goes up to the Antiquitech, because the building that I was on Saturday, it was suggested that it had a vault in the basement, and you couldn't go near it, and it said that it was from the original. When they built it, it controlled all the electricity for the whole block. So what that's saying to me is that, you know, at least they're collecting atmospheric electricity together as like electric city, you know, that idea, and using it for the function of lighting, possibly, you know, elevators, possibly.
Something we're seeing is these mirrors. Have you seen these stone mirrors? Like all of the buildings have these like shields being held up.
I can show you like quickly.
Imagine like these old mirrors, and we used to think that iconoclasts had removed the shield's place, because you'd see often these empty mirrors. Xander and I were noticing that.
You want me to end sharing? Switch over?
No. Just keep. Yeah, I can show you. Like, okay, so here's the top of the Flatiron building. It has a huge plaque. It's like a stone mirror, and okay. Here you see it again.
Zoom in a little bit there.
Oh, wait.
So
the stone mirror.
You guys see that?
And then, oh, okay, it was just a phone. And then the Flatiron Building in the 1900s is sending an illuminated signal or beam of light out of the plaque or somewhere very close to the plaque. And if I could just, I have some more pictures of plaque lighting.
Sort of like, you know, in second Brendan Fraser reference of the evening, in The Mummy, where they shine the light at all of the different mirrors, and then they make like this, you know, from one building to another, they make all these paths of light, you know, just unilateral luminescence from one.
I might have to find that for, oh yeah, here. If I could share my screen. Oh yeah, here we go. Round table. And where was it?
There we go. Look at this.
This is a plaque.
Look at the size of this, by the way. It's not that small of a place.
And it's sending a beam of light somehow down. I have no clue what's going on.
Well, start by going down here. Do you see the doorway? Look down here at the doorway. So for some perspective, zoom in there.
Here?
This is like where some human would walk out, right? And then here at the center, you've got a focal point. So all the light is coming towards the front. They're all reflecting off all the points to one point.
But it's somehow coming through the plaques or something in the walls. And I think it's the same thing going on with the stone plaques.
Go back to the ceiling. Oh.
Here?
Yeah.
It's from the stars through the plaques, through the stone shields. So when the weather aligns properly or the astronomy is correct.
And if you think about what we just read about, that inventor guy who made telephone lighting, light telephone.
Alexander Graham Bell's photophone, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, photophones.
Before the regular phone, right? Again, I'm glad that we're talking about this because it's been a while, so anyone who hasn't paid attention to our original episodes, learn about pantelegraph machines, photophones. You know, the 1800s, they had scanners. They had scanning fax machines, essentially, that worked on pendulums. And then the photophone worked by sending originally sound recorded in light, the variance in light. And then they were able to send actual images. And this is what, you know, before there was the radio, there was Tesla's garden project where he was sending images of himself back and forth. But he didn't have the patent because he
you just
a day after Graham Bell.
You just explained holography and just in a different way.
Yeah.
Not different enough to get a patent, though.
Where are the diagrams for the letters in that photo?
I have it somewhere, but I'm looking for some of the other plaque videos or things I have because I had one more. So I'm bummed out that I cannot show you that, but I know I have it somewhere, so I'll find it for the next.
It's interesting also in here.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look.
Odin was just showing this water tower looking silo, like a brick obelisk.
Look at this lens, though.
Ooh,
I
like the outfit.
The lens, and we know that is a gun now or a weapon, and he's not just going to do a tournament with a lance tournament with this.
Dude, these guys had some cool weaponry, man.
They did. Also, this one. Look at this. I have no clue what this is, but it is somehow a resonating or steam-powered thing, like a staff. These weird things going on.
I have a question. It might be a bit off topic, but I've been interested in this for a while. But water mills. We've got a lot of those here in the Netherlands, and I wanted to ask if anybody knew anything about like water mills connected towards Tartaria.
I really wish that Ethan is a fan.
Nathan knows about this.
Okay.
Nathan?
Hello.
You know about water mills and star forts and Tartaria.
The water mills are a funny thing for me because you and I, months ago, we found those in the walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In
the bifold walls. So to see them outside, I don't think it's anything special outside. And in smaller structures, especially in the countryside. a simple machine, I would say there, but I've been wrong before.
But we found out, Nathan, you remember that diagram where you saw that there was these water inlets and the Starford takes in the water and then uses the water pressure to do mill work, basically.
Also,
Exactly, yeah, that's the one.
The removal of a lot of these older, larger water mills, which you could also consider mercury mills. There's some evidence there are mercury mills.
Yeah.
But the achnasmus material of the copper coil wrapping, all been taken out of most of these, not all of them. And so in San Francisco, there are 2 giant mills that are still considered the biggest in the world in terms of windmill technology, but they're right by the sea. And they look like windmills, but they're connected to an underground system, and then they rotate. So I think you'll find windmills and water mills often had similar technology. Wow, look at this.
Oh yeah, this is Mosho's solar machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was reportedly able to turn water into ice in minutes.
Wow.
By this effect.
Can you guys share my screen real quick?
Yes.
Looking right now.
So this is a tunnel, you know, and they say it's an aqueduct. And it just, look at the brickwork. You know, it's pretty interesting because all through Massachusetts and this area that we've been talking about, Clinton, Mass, you see these mills. And the first thing after the reset I found is that these controllers immediately went to go and build this dam to control, you know, the water and I believe, you know, to make free energy. And you're saying there's all these tunnels. And, you know, Martin was talking about tunnels and possible different uses for them. And I just look at this picture and I say to myself, like, you know, how far does this go? Does this lead to an underground, you know, like area where people could stay and live and protect themselves in a reset situation? I know it's a little off topic, but that's what
No, this is perfect. I have an idea. And this idea came from Wise Up. What you're looking at there is an arch and tunnel that predates the rock around it. What do you think?
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect preservation.
Okay.
Following Lahar's and pyroclasm. The mountain came after.
The mountain came out. Wow.
Okay, here's an interesting one because actually a few days ago I heard something quite funny about human remains being found in 3 or 4 million year old rock.
Right here, guys.
You also heard that
Look at this.
In
archaeology on Google.
Yeah.
Is that like biology? Biology?
Well, I'm saying that this is a face, and it kind of looks like 2 giants like laying next to each other in the quarries. And in the archive, they wrote literally circa 1800s giants in the quarry.
Whoa! It's getting too real, man. Getting too real. There's just so much evidence of being sophisticated things. Okay, really quickly, I wanted to ask you. You were doing some pictures of brick obelisks, right, Odin's son? You had something. Can you show that one you had in a second? Because we've been running around all of these giant brick silos or obelisks or towers. I'm not sure what you call them, and they're just everywhere and nowhere that makes sense. They'll be like right next to a highway, or they'll be in the middle of a mountain, or they'll be in the middle of town with other things built around it because they didn't want to remove the thing. Yeah, things like this. What's up with this? Where's this one from? In Clinton?
So this is in Quincy, Massachusetts.
Quincy.
And look at it. I mean, I don't know if it's just the picture, but it looks like on the top it's been, you know, seared a few times, maybe by electricity, and maybe my mind goes to this is an old way to power your electric city up, right? Because it would be in a grid. I don't know what you guys think.
I think it's a furnace.
A furnace?
I think it was a furnace. We have those here in Washington State in quite a few areas, and the furnaces have been out of use for a long time. But for industry for building these. The furnaces had to be built on the spot to increase brick production and also for human and medical waste.
In the time machine, they have all of these underground silos, and then they have to have these ventilation shafts for the tunnel systems. I don't know.
Mhm.
Notice that a lot of times storks here like to sleep on top of them, and they use them as grain silos because they're hollow. So I kind of wonder if they're just something that used to be a release valve. We're starting to believe that some of the terracing of the mountains are being done to avoid liquefaction, so that things can come out and it just keeps it from collapsing over the period of time.
What about this picture? Do you see that there's train tracks, there's 2 obelisks, and then there's obviously, you know, piles of debris in the background with, you know, your trees don't look, you know, too healthy, you know, and then you have some shrubbery. So for this to be laid out like this, I think, like, why would you have the landscape like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, because that's what you want when you got a train, is a pillar of Joachim and Boaz.
Yes, Boaz
gee whiz.
You know,
I want to see what's written on those plaques on the pillars.
There was another picture someone put up a second ago. Was it Victory the Lamund thing? Lamund? So there's a guy I was talking to recently about a lost treasure of Lamund. You know, you think the Lamund is the world, but there's a guy called Lamund, and he was a Christian, and he has like a hidden treasure map with like a telescope, and like there's a bunch of Tartarian towers trying to find the original treasure. It's somewhere in like Colorado.
There's another one of those in, I think it's Nova Scotia.
Oh, is this like a fascist money?
Yes. Did you watch Martin, his second to last, just at the end, about an hour and 40 in, he showed some of my pictures from the cemetery outside of Clinton in Berlin, Massachusetts.
I haven't seen his most recent one.
Was one right before it. And so he's displayed a few of these. There was a bunch of obelisks, and then I feel this is a fasciste. And what do you guys think? Because he thought it could have been, or it could have been more of like a draping over, like say Boaz.
Definitely does look to have that fascist shape.
It looks like it's a remnant, though, right? But it looks like something was destroyed in the process, and that this is being used as a legacy of whomever remembered the thing before it was destroyed.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. In the cemetery, a lot of these obelisks were used just for the period of, say, 1789 to the people that died in like 1812, 1813. And I just thought that was kind of unique, considering my understanding of the reset. And also, there was a lot of Masonic and Knights of Templar, and then Baal worship. So, Andreas, why don't you tell some of the viewers about Baal?
Baal?
Baal, yeah.
So let's have a ball, so the idea of having a party even, and Cannibal and Hannibal and son of Baal is what Hannibal means. But H and K and C can be reversed and reused.
That's Martin.
So they like to eat children. And, Lucille Ball, there's like a correlation with her family and a lot of the people that came from North Carthage, she's a redhead, by the way, if you didn't know from the black and white.
There's also the whole ball community, which is going to the ball.
Right.
And that was the masquerade. That was
masquerade ball, the Venetian ball.
You know what was weird about Lucille Ball? She owned a house in Sedona, and the ladies that used to be the Wrigley Spearmint twins, they bought the house because of her. They were friends with her, and they put a mannequin outside that looked just like Lucille Ball, and they dress her every day that you go by. She would be dressed in something different.
Lol.
They got some splaining to do.
Also, like the Time Machine, weirdly. I don't know. There's a lot of Alan Young references today. So, but the Baal worship.
Don't forget about the spinning ball.
Yeah. So you got the disco ball. So now, and the light that reflects off of it. But Baal worship a lot of the time has to do with child sacrifice and
it's Mars,
right?
It's Baal is Vulcan, is Moses, is Mars. And he requires blood sacrifice.
And mummifications rituals.
And Lucille Ball. Lucy. Yeah.
And she married a royal. Desi Arnaz was a royal who escaped Cuba because, you know, they became socialists, so he had to leave his plantation with all of his money. You know, he was a very, very important family. They go, you know, Cuban royalty goes back to before the Venetians, and probably like we're starting to look into the Habsburg family here. There's so much connection to Carthage because Carthage, North Africa, was the Baal worshipping state until it was, you know, we say taken and made part of the Roman Empire. So
now
they love to sacrifice children.
Lee and I have been following this channel that just got into the Habsburgs and how they named their son Otto and then disappeared after they had been at war with the Ottomans for how many hundreds of years?
Right. 700, arguably, unless you don't believe in time.
Yeah.
Well, you do have a lot of interesting photos, Odin's son, or Drew.
I appreciate that, Victor. I mean, I do this after you guys. You guys give me a lot of inspiration. I like the way that Andreas breaks his videos down and relates them to comics and cartoons. And on that subject, I was just out and about with my wife, and we ran into, I don't have the photo here, but do I? The comic Barbar, which is about an elephant.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Listen to this, you guys.
Barbar is the elephant from Madagascar. So key.
Yeah. Oh, did Miles say something?
I was relating it to a lot of things, but he had shown me this before, and I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, Barbar is my favorite, my mom's favorite, and I read this all the time as a kid. I have a little plush Barbar,
and we cannot stress this enough for people to remember that B equals 2 and T equals 20, and move the 0 out of the 20 and you have a 2, so B equals T numerologically, so you have Tartaria equals Barbaria.
Yes. So I feel that the Phoenicians, just to downplay the Tartarian Empire, was doing a lot of disinformation and making everybody believe that this great nation was, you know, barbarian, like, you know, cannibals. And they would change their name to barbarian. Is that how you say it? Barbarians.
Yeah.
And so with the book Barbar, you know, you see this elephant
Babar,
and having to get acquainted with these other people, these other beings coming to their home and having to live with them and showing that you have to coexist, right? And then also do their jobs, which is pretty twisted.
Yeah, you know, Babar starts out with his mother and father murdered in an elephant poaching match, and then an old French lady who's a colonialist raises him, and when he gets back to Madagascar, he's the only rightful king. So he starts building all this neoclassical architecture, and he does a really great job building this amazing, immaculate French-style neoclassical city, but the rhinoceroses and monkeys won't participate in his system. They want to have, they're all short-sighted and self-driven, and they won't work for the greater empire of Babar. That's his
now. As a side note for later, if Tartar and Barbar,
and the elephant statues of Mike's Mountain,
if those are similar, then what is Conan the Barbarian?
Conan the Barbarian is the Neanderthal.
That's something to think about because he had to fight his way out of the snake temple, the serpent house.
Well, like Neanderthals,
remember that?
So he's a cave dweller, and his mother gets murdered, I think, right? And then he tries to avenge her. Also, He-Man is based on Conan completely, right? I don't know. We'll have to pursue that more.
Sorry to sidetrack.
You brought that up, Nathan, because I just posted that video of Schwarzenegger being drop kicked in the back the other day.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get the other side, quantum logic, which you bring in I forgot that he played also Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, and that was a huge thing back in the time. He was with a woman who looked like a man. He had a maiden. He had to escape the House of Mirrors. He had to escape the House of Mirrors with the demon. He had to fight his way out of the Serpent Temple, which is also the cave. And
with Hermes, right?
Yeah.
Mike, I love when you zoom in on
Exactly.
those Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
I liked it when he was making love to the witch and she turned into a demon. That reminded me of a couple of my episodes in my life.
I thought you were still talking about stuff that Mike did that you liked. I was like, whoa, what did I miss?
No, that's good.
So wait, I mean, not that I don't love all of these esoteric stories. I mean, clearly I do. It's me. But I was really interested when Odin's son, Drew, you were talking about you're interested in the 12 tribes.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I
mean,
whoa.
Where my mind goes is in the beginning of the story. I feel like they come from the north, near Hyperborea and the 4 island cities, and Freemasonry, for your viewers to understand. You have the east, the south, and the west, right? That they worship in the lodge, and their own, fellow lodge members, their fellow Masons, when they sit and they watch a ritual, they're in the north, and the north is called the dark, and that's being in the dark. And I feel like if they do that to their own members, they do that to us, and that's why they've deleted the Hyperborea and those islands off of our maps. And I feel if that's right, then maybe that's where Christ really comes from, and that's where the Tartarians and the giants come from, is up in Hyperborea in the north, in the 4 islands,
Totally.
4
They
islands.
write about that themselves. They say, well, our ancestry came from the north or beyond the north wind. And that guy, Olaf Jansen, that wrote about his travels with his father to the North Pole, he meets Tartarian-looking giants, and they are depicted as like Chinese but Russian-looking, very tall.
Red hair? Did they have red hair?
Wouldn't you know it? Okay, really quick, because I'm just too impressed with this. Mike, can you tell me what the heck are we looking at right now?
If I knew, I would tell you.
I mean, it's a movie. It's a mechanical star fort, right? You just showed some gears. It looks like one of the moving windmills you've got. I mean, plus it's got an electric tower in the center, or some sort of a metal tower, excuse me, that could have electric pass through it if it wanted.
I think it's a crane of so.
Yeah, I think there are 2 cranes down there, or 3.
Okay. So they're cleaning it up, maybe? Is that their story?
It looked like it's a new structure of sorts, but I found this earlier today, and it immediately reminded me of this one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, totally.
The Deal Castle, man, with the moving. That's like the
Like a clock.
We don't know whether these are moving. We have only found like those I found that where they claim they're moving. Right.
Right. We have the blueprints and the diagrams that you had on the show last time, a few times ago.
Who?
I said you showed some diagrams of them moving from the Virgin magnets, you believe?
Yes, that looks like a magnetron.
With 16 candles, those magnets really work well. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the same principle.
Yeah.
Isn't there someone in the United States way back that used the Virgin magnets?
Yeah, that's Ed Leedskalnin, the builder of Coral Castle.
Yes, Coral Castle. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you show any more of those, even if they're like older pictures or even just sketches or drawings?
We will. Yeah. Someone can pull up. Also, something I wanted to say that I've been thinking about. I've been looking at these star forts, and I've been, looking at these mountains that Stellium 7's channel has been. Mike's been showing some pretty good evidence that they're like life forms. Well, in school in marine biology, they made us look at sea stars. And I don't know if you've ever seen a giant sea star, but I have. They're at least about this big. I think Victor, you said you saw a pretty giant sea star.
Yep, in the Galapagos Islands, yeah, I saw a pretty giant sea star.
And you know what they say, as long as they live near the volcanoes, they can grow to be giants. That's what they teach us in school. But you could have them be so big, they could be larger than what makes sense to you, like maybe a kilometer-sized star that's biologically formed. And it's like, these are the titans all of a sudden we're talking about. When you can, on top of that, you've got things that are built over the remnants of them, perhaps. I'm not saying that I'm fully convinced of this yet, but the more I've been looking into it, it makes plenty of sense to me that out from the sea crawled very giant stars, you know? And then after that, it became very common all over the planet to build based on these styles. And then we have an entire history based on building points around those points, you know? Because everywhere we've so far found a star fort, we found a titan. We found some sort of a giant mount of some kind. And it works the same way back. Every time we find like a titan, we seem to find a star fort. It's
Andreas, so where do you stand with the star forts? Like a lot of people, you know, say they're either the Phoenicians and then those were, you know, their star forts fighting the Tartarians, or they are the Tartarians, or do you feel that they are Templar star forts? Like, where do you feel that all these star forts actually fall?
So I feel like the Templar
under the 12 tribes, and they were all together at one point in a New World type of religion and kingdom, or how do you feel about
the latter? Sure. The latter theory of yours is actually something I'm pursuing. I've heard enough of both the Phoenicians were good and evil, and that the Tartarians were good and evil to think that maybe there's a third option. Templar, it sounds like they inherited things, and they're really into the number 8. Yeah, but you start looking at all these star forts; they're not all the number 8. So I think it goes back further. And yeah, you know, both sides use rockets. So I could see how the Phoenicians and the Tartarians could be using these things, and it could be capture the flag in certain terms of technology, and things moving from one empire to the other. You know, imagine in World War II, you're a Czech. Who are you going to choose to work for? You know, like it's not as cut and dry. But at the same time, I think that the 12 tribes. I had a videotape series, and I had an interactive comic book when I was a kid about the lost 12 tribes. And so it's been coming into my mind more and more. The Beta Israelites have the coolest star fort like design machine to make the cross cut out of the stone. I think that there might be like the idea of the dividing of the technology amongst the 12, and then eventually they're supposed to work together again. This is why also I'm doing an interview with Phil Lawler. He's the guy who focus on the family. You follow that stuff, but he did Adventures in Odyssey, which is all about following the Qumran documents to the Dead Sea Scrolls and finding out the truth. And he's pretty interested.
Do you feel that's where, like, just to relate it to the mainstream for some of our viewers that like are just jumping on and they probably know about, you know, secret societies and different associations like the Rosicrucianers or Templars. Do you feel that the Templars were a cover-up story? Because when I became a Knights Templar, and I'm not with them anymore, but once I went through all the degrees and I was, you know, in the lodges, I would hear stories that, you know, hey, you know, because, we got kicked out of France and Friday the 13th and the whole story, you know, we didn't just go to Portugal, we came to America. And, you know, and that's, I always felt that was a cover-up story for what was really here.
Well, Odin's son, you have heard about the Vikings predating the Columbian crossovers.
Yes.
And the Vikings, the VI and kings, VI is 6, so it's 6 kings. And that relates to the Hyksos people.
Mm-hmm.
And they are so similar in style, in what they did, in mannerisms to the Phoenicians. They're basically if you look at their boats,
something
they
were
have
the
same
Jews.
things.
Something they were the Jews, because there's a period in Egypt where the Hyksos were in control for about 100 years, and then they were kicked out of Egypt. And there's a pretty decent, compelling argument that they might have been the Jews that Moses was associated with, that were in power and then were removed. But that's just one of the things I had been.
No, this is great stuff, guys. This is what I've been trying to narrow down. And
but yeah, the Templars, I think it's like they're the dudes in charge of the temple. You know what I mean? In other words, they're kind of like they're like Burger King franchise managers. And so at some point, the temples were put in their power to hold on to.
But that was the modern temple, because if you look in the Spanish language, Templar means student of the law. And there's this legal history to the Templars. They set up private banks. They set up the
credit system.
The whole central banking system is theirs.
And that's the deeper.
And they're the sovereign orders of Malta.
Yeah,
they are like they have the sovereign order of Malta. It's like the only non-geographically specific organization that is sovereign. With like the same sovereignty as the Vatican.
And that's why
architecture to Cusco.
That's why when you see them in America and the different lodges, you'll see them under the York Rite. So with Knights of Malta and Knights of the Red Cross. So they're joined together, you know, year after, you know, the reset and building America.
But the point is that they have the Order of Melchizedek because they couldn't do it according to their own game plan rules. They have their game. They have the rules to their game. It says that they had to have the Order of Melchizedek.
Oh, guys, I need to show you this. Are you watching my screen?
Yes.
Okay, look at this. These are people.
Well, I did not get that. That was what that was at first. How
this is just crazy.
Up to the sky. Right?
Yeah. And this ball is made out of bronze. It says so here. Pros Bowl de Bronze.
Now, do you feel that has like mercury or something in it? Or how do you feel?
Take a look. There's something really weird going on because you have these two angel faces blowing wind here, as we see in the old depictions. So I'm thinking it's harnessed. This is perhaps like there's something about atmospheric electricity gathering here, I think. And you see those wires coming down of it. And it's like mounted on 4 or 5 extremely sharp pyramidal or obelisks. It's just crazy. It looks like a giant tuning fork.
Well, I also saw that they had something tied around their eyes. Was that what I was seeing? Did they have like their eyes covered up?
It's a bit hard to make out because it's an old depiction.
We've been looking into electrochemical and photoluminescent
but also this one
reactions and chain reactions that can happen between certain materials and metals, and which metals that can be placed within each other to create alloys that will have luminescent qualities when they interact with each other. And there's tons of them. So we're not sure exactly how much.
Wow, that's so cool. Go back real quick.
I mean, you can make these things that have liquid mercury running through them, and then they have a certain amount of magnetism, and then that spinning quality makes. I mean, do you guys remember those? Anybody old enough to remember those toys before they had video games? This guy doesn't. They used to have these things that would spin and they'd spark. I had one when I was a kid. It looked like a lawnmower with a butterfly plastic net over it, and so as you went by, it would just spin and it would make like Flintstone sparks. So it would just create this just like what is the toy called? The new one?
The Beyblades?
Yeah, the new ones are called Beyblades. You pull the string and it spins and the friction shoots sparks out. You know? So it's a certain amount of energy that's being catalyzed. So if we had something like this that was attached to running water or the wind in the city,
I want to, Drew, you had a request. What was it?
Request? Oh, I was just asking to look at the picture they were showing. There was 2 more in.
Oh, here?
Yes. So is that showing a fountain, so water being used with technasmia?
There's steam coming out of these balls.
Yeah, there's steam coming out of the balls, and it's just...
It looks like a pressurized steam. This is essentially what the nuclear reactor model
And I also want to point out how whenever they do art on these fountains, they have all the tech incorporated inside the art. It's so like they are masters at hiding.
They really are. It's also like beautiful, right? It's great to look at, but you can see the alchemical process that goes into this.
That wall around it looks like the Cray computer.
Look at this. This is like, what does this remind you of?
Mount Meru and the four
rivers. Yep.
It's like a flying whale.
Or Yggdrasil,
all
or one of the silicon pillars that are cut down and no forest on flat Earth, right?
Yeah, but Andreas said like they're all slightly off, you know, by the angle, and that is they make like an X if you could like flip it a little bit like an X, and it's not perfect.
So that's where like a lot of people don't understand. That's where you get the cross from, right? The waterways inside, you know, the islands. Just referring back to that for a minute. You know, we see the cross with the water coming in the four Angel Islands.
Yeah,
and then you'll have Mount Meru in the middle. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, definitely. Also me, and you see it on a lot of things. Like it reproduced like everywhere, as Martin shows.
Yes.
And yeah, oh look at this.
Oh
like,
wow.
This is like a lighthouse, Mike.
So have you guys gone into lighthouses any more than
Mike, did you get the picture we sent you of the little lighthouse? I better send it to you.
Because I remember Andreas saying that like every lighthouse you guys look up and you want to go to, they won't let you in, right?
We just went to this gnarly lighthouse we couldn't get into that had cameras everywhere. It was on. It was like the place looked really brutal security wise. Like it looked like you were escaping East Berlin in the 70s. But once we got around the cliff where we could see literally to the edge of Ibiza, which, you know, theoretically is impossible, but I digress. You get the point. Anyway, like we could see the lighthouse's whole back area where the building had been built on an old temple and then they had closed it off. And there's a pretty much abandoned looking 1800s building next to it. But everywhere we go now, we're finding like to the point of afterwards, there was a lighthouse in our room that we stayed in. It was like, okay, like we're supposed to be looking into these way more. But there's a neon green oxidated copper one in Dania. Or was it Havia?
It was Havia.
Havia, yeah. Dania, no. Where's the one we visited, or the one that was across the ocean that we'd have to go to? The green one or the white one? Are you talking about?
Oh, I'm not quite sure.
The point is, there's lots of them, and they're really fancy, and they're all very old, and they look, you know, really wide and thick, and they don't look like.
I wanted to show you guys something quickly. This is a courtyard. It's very interesting. Has like interesting finial here.
Oh, the XP.
It has an interesting tower here, and it has like this really weird causeway up here. And then when we read D. It says something about binds the vapeur, so steam-powered electricity.
Wow.
And this
Great
is
find. Wow. Great find.
This is the steam-powered electricity. Something going on here.
So
this
no
is
big deal.
Old.
No,
so that reminds me of like it being bonded. If you look at where you were just at, you know, and it looks that reminds me of like something being bonded and electrical.
Oh,
what a coincidence.
Well, it's good to have an electrician to say that.
That's how my mind's going, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you guys were talking about Mercury and some of these orbs, and I was thinking of their function and use and how it would be set up in the building. And I was thinking that there would have to be copper rods going down them. And I was just kind of thinking, like, did you guys get into any more about the Mercury, like how long it would last?
Well, think about the thermometers, right? So Mercury is great. It'll compress, it'll expand. You can control that based on natural weather or synthesized steam heat. You can use it to push a, like pneumatics, or you can use it in Archimedean spirals. So there's some pretty powerful amounts of, as it gets expanded through the day, then it has to go back. So as it's decreasing over the cooling period over the night, it's just going, as it's going smaller, it's spinning something. So you can use it to power something at night even. But that's all just what I've been thinking in terms of mechanical energy. I haven't been thinking enough about Mercury in terms of like nanomaterials, and Mercury is used a lot in terms of like circuit boards. So it makes a lot of sense that some of these weird fountain places would have been mercurial, so that they could have had these organization systems to have it flow in the right places. And you'd have basically, integrated circuits, which would be the machines or even people. I mean, the more we're looking at it, it looks like they're influencing it with the actual consciousness of people.
This is one of my favorites.
Wow, that's awesome.
This is like a levitating glowing ring. It's
like a shield.
It's like a shield.
A shield or a mirror?
Yeah, same idea these days.
These are copper wired pillars, as we've read about, and these are illuminated obelisks. And this thing is shooting out electricity that is connecting to the roofs of the nearby building.
This is what
that's what it's showing.
This is what the president calls 6G.
This is beyond. It's so crazy that our high school teachers didn't take the time to show us stuff like this,
or to learn it themselves in high school.
Oh yeah, maybe just like that.
I mean, they do that on point though. Like they do that for a reason. You know, they want you thinking in one direction. Me and Mikey were talking yesterday about the Navy and the Army and how if you have too much of an intellectual mind, it's almost like they weed you out. You know, you hear so many of those stories because they want you just looking down and just keep going in that direction, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what they teach in these schools, you know?
Look at how the people are not fearful of this massive electrical arcing. It looks like they're even being hit by it.
Whoa.
It's like they want to be, right?
Maybe if you're wearing metal clothes, it's not such a big deal or something. Or maybe it's a great thing.
Oh, like the mesh? You're talking about the mesh armor? Is that what you're saying?
So here's another thing. You just said shield versus mirror, right? I feel like the armor is also maybe like a strange way of putting it. It's probably, you know, it was clothes. I think it was just metal clothes at first. It was really tightly knit. Like cotton, 500 strands of silver. I'm starting to see a lot of examples in a suet style of clothing that the females in Egypt continue to wear to this day. I think that they probably, when they had their husbands and sons murdered, they probably kept it for themselves, and that kind of upset the status quo, so they started making armor as best they could in the style, which is why it devolved into what it is, you know, by the later period. But it started out much more refined.
And I heard something from I think Martin. He was saying that meshing they're using today in the Army for defense, right? They're using that style now.
Take your pick, you know. But yes, the thing is, silk you would use first. So you have armor, and then you have leather, and then you have silk. And so the armor gets the impact, and then the arrow hits or the bullet hits the leather, and then the leather keeps you from losing your chest and, you know, breaking your chest and ribs. And then the bullet or arrow gets stuck in the tightly knit silk. So the military, what they're doing is they're making goat silk, where they genetically modify goats to have the DNA enzyme of spiders. And then the spider silk is excreted from the milk. And then they mix that with different polymers or metals, usually silver. But I'm hearing copper is becoming popular too, because copper meshing is good for electrostatic. And so
the orgonite, like that's where my mind went, was the orgonite, like how it's a good protection against like 5G.
That's why we got to do something, Nathan. We got to do a really serious thing on orgonite. And
Andreas and
I said that to you guys in one of the comments. I said you got to do one of your orgonite shows. You remember I said that?
Right. Nathan left a while ago. He had to go unexpectedly.
Yeah, Andreas and I, we have to leave soon. We have a dinner reservation for 10 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, this was great. I want to be able to jump back in with you guys.
Excellent.
You should.
We should do, a video of the boundaries.
I'm so stoked on what you brought up today, and like both in terms of Clinton. Yeah. In Clinton, but also in terms of the 12 tribes, because everything is really folding into I mean, as much as I love to talk about cartoons, you know, the 12 tribes is a huge part of what we're doing.
Well, I think the cartoons are great. I think that's easy to show, and it shows the Hollywood and what they can, because there's a big difference between what Hollywood can do and the cartoons and what they can get away with. You know what I mean? And but back to the 12 tribes. I think we're onto something. Like Victor says 13, I say 12. I only say 13 is different because I feel like after the reset, after the war, you have the 13 bloodlines as what we see today as the controlling families, the controlling, Jewish, you can even say they're royal families that control most of, the
after Babylon, you have from the one you become 12, and so there really is 13, but there are 12 that don't want to agree, kind of like different colors of the rainbow.
Or Judas, right? In Judas, like
I forget. Did you say had you heard the radio series I was talking about, Adventures in Odyssey, the Christian radio series? You know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't heard that.
I recommend you check this out. It's this dude I knew. He was like in Hollywood, and he got the lady who did the voices in Darkwing Duck, and like the lady who did the Barbie commercials, and he had them do Christian radio. And he has a whole thing on the Dead Sea Scrolls, the 12 tribes. Yeah, Adventures in Odyssey, and his the Iliad, Homer, Odyssey, Jason and the Argonauts all worked into it. So it's a very weird, interesting series, and I'm pretty sure it's not evil. It seems pretty positive, but check it out yourself, and I'd love to know what you think of it.
Victor.
Yeah.
Do you remember that episode from the observation deck where he presents the quote-unquote biggest star fort in the world?
Yeah.
You're looking at it.
Yeah, this is the biggest star fort in the world.
I don't think it is the biggest, but it certainly is a biggie.
Wow.
Hey guys, sorry I got kicked off there.
Oh, I was wondering how there were two of you.
Okay, guys, you might want to go on without us because.
One more thing I want to show you for probably next week.
But just real quick, Andreas, what were you saying about that radio show that you wanted me to check out?
Link to it. It's called Adventures in Odyssey.
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it. Especially these
definitely
older episodes. They go into the Dead Sea Scrolls, the 12 tribes.
Yes.
All kinds of Tartarian stuff I'm starting to realize because it all takes place around this like building that was a Tartarian ruin, and all that's left is one tower wing of it. I mean, the whole thing is really weird, but really, and it came out like 20 years before The Matrix, and they have a Matrix augmented reality simulator for Bible adventures in it. It's gnarly good. But yeah,
I got to check it out. I definitely will, and I'll come back on our next meetup, and I can definitely show you guys what I learned from that and joining in with our research.
Great.
Hey, Andreas.
Spirituality and about science and history.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna sign off too. This was great. I feel like we did a lot here, so let's keep going with this.
All right. This one's gonna go.
All right, guys.
Sure.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, put this one up. All right, guys.
Right away.
See you, Miles. See you, Mike. And see you, Lynn. And see you, Drew.
And see you.
All right, Victor. All right, Andreas, thank you.
See you, Tartarian.
See you, Mikey. See you, Miles.